Welcome. You are listening to the Overseas Life Redesign podcast, where you'll hear fun, relaxed, and inspirational interviews with people who are really living the dream. I'm Dawn Fleming, an attorney turned alchemist, and your host for the show, coming to you from the tropical island paradise of Isla Mujeres, Mexico. Listen to conversations with courageous souls who've stepped out of their comfort zone and designed a new way of life. They'll share their experiences, wisdom, and offer practical steps you can take to redesign your life overseas. Listen and you'll believe. If you can dream it, you can achieve it.
Today I'm here with Jim Guy and excited to hear and share his story about moving to paradise. And I want to thank you for joining me today, Jim. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're busy with all your drones and playing and having a good time. So we were just chatting before the interview, and I had a chance to get to know you actually from Facebook with the beautiful pictures that you've been sharing pretty much since you arrived here, and was fascinated to hear that actually you decided it was the pandemic that made you decide it was time to get out of Dodge.
Well, the pandemic was the final straw. It was March 1st of 2020. And I was staying on my sailboat in San Diego, and had been doing different jobs to supplement my income and stay busy after closing my business a few years earlier, and just heard the day before on February 29th, a leap year, that the first American death had been attributed to COVID, and I just thought, I'd like to be someplace a little mellower than the States to see where this goes and to weather this. So bought a one-way plane ticket to Cancun, packed one bag, got a 6-month tourist visa at the airport, and came back to the island.
And you had been here before, right? So it wasn't a completely new place?
Yes, I came here for about 8 years ago, around Christmas time, for a week. Loved the place. Thought it was a place I'd like to retire, but always set unrealistic expectations for what conditions I would need to meet before I made the move to come down here. And finally, that morning on the boat, I just realized it was time to give it a try.
Time to go, as we say.
Yes.
We've said that a few times. So, and that I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times people do that, and I don't think financial planners help sometimes when they say, oh, you have to accumulate some magic number, $1 million or $2 million. I mean, I think if you are like Tom and I, where you've had some setbacks through your life, maybe a divorce or two, or a business not go the way that you hoped, you might find yourself right at 50-ish, 60-ish going, I'm not really where I wanted to be financially, but we're kind of all living proof that you can actually do quite well. It's actually harder to pull that off, in my opinion, than in the States than it is here, just because of the dramatic lower cost of living here.
Well, yeah, and in the States you always have a choice of living in a place you want to live or living in a place you can afford, and you find yourself in the rat race, living somewhere you can afford or working somewhere you can make the most money, and it's one of the greatest sources of misery I've seen in my friends and family. Like my brother lives in a place he can live. He's retired now. Lived in a place he can afford. Commuted 4 hours every day to work, and just miserable the entire time, and risking his life driving on the crowded highways, and just unhealthy, so unhealthy.
Yeah, and I've heard that from a lot of people, and even continue to, as those conversations go on about people wanting to make a move because of that, the quality of life. So I know you have a background in medicine, and you so you left, the United States, as we talked about before we started recording, due to kind of the science state of mind, I guess is what we'll call it in the United States, and came down here. I know Tom and I have said, throughout this whole pandemic that we are so grateful that we were here. Because of the attitude of the authorities in terms of how seriously they really took the virus, and really considering how close together the Mexican people live, and how the medical care may not be as prevalent, shall we say. I would put forth the quality is just as good. People don't know that, but the fact that their hospital systems weren't overrun necessarily. I know they had some trouble in Mexico City, but it was really an interesting cultural comparison, I thought. You want to talk about that?
Well, yeah. When I got here, there were definitely rumblings about, okay, this virus is definitely going to get around the whole world. It's going to affect every country. Really, even then, even before U.S. passports became so useless in so much of the world, I felt like my choices were U.S. or Mexico. I didn't feel like I could pick up and go to, let's say, Vietnam or Australia, or I had a very limited budget. I knew some Spanish. I knew my way around here from brief visit before, and I just figured, with I didn't really have the whole world as a choice. Even back in March of last year, I thought I better come to this place I liked and knew a few people on Isla Mujeres, and I'd kept in touch with my dive guide on the island, and he's
is that
the one.
Jim by any chance?
No. This was a native by the name of Enrique Avila.
Okay.
And I'd gone diving with him before, and so I actually called him that morning when I made the decision to come and said, hey, can you set me up with a place? And he said, oh, my sister has a room to rent, and for $2,000. And I said, oh, that's way too much. And he says, 2,000 pesos is too much? I said, oh, you're saying you have a room for me for $100 US a month? And he said, yes. And I said, yes, I'll be there tomorrow.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, not $2,000, 2,000 pesos.
2,000 pesos with an exchange rate of 20 to 1.
Wow.
Made it $100 a month to rent
a room.
To rent a room for a month. Even if I left after 2 weeks because things didn't work out, I'd only spent half the cost of a hotel room for the night for a month.
Wow. That's a great story. So how long did you end up staying there?
I stayed in that room for, I think, 2 months with a musician couple. They were very sweet. They spoke no English, which was a great crash course in Spanish. Great immersion, crash course in Spanish. There was much Googling. And they were, as musicians, to make any money in tips with music in Mexico, you need to know some songs in English. And so they had memorized the lyrics of several Beatles songs, loved playing those, and had no idea what they were saying. And so we had some fun looking up translations of what they'd been singing.
Teaching what they were singing?
They said, well, the Beatles were pretty dang cool.
That's funny.
I had no idea.
Do you play too?
No, not a musical bone.
Okay.
I mean, I played trumpet in junior high in a band, but no, I'm not musical.
So you just got to enjoy their time.
Yes. So stayed there for a couple of months. Then the individual unit next door came available. Rented that for $300 US a month.
Your own place.
At my own place. If you walked in the front door, your knees crashed into the bed, but it was my place. and adopted a dog while there who was
Naturally.
basically dying at my doorstep. So I
Oh.
brought him in, and again, with the shock of what things cost here, wanted to get him vet care, didn't think I could afford it. Finally got just so desperate to help this dog. I called a traveling vet. She came, did a complete workup, lab work, gave me antibiotics, gave him a shot, gave him an IV, all for a grand total of $12 US.
Right.
So I felt bad about not helping him earlier.
Sooner. Right.
Yes. With the shocks of what things cost here don't stop after a week. I mean, I've been here over a year, and it's still you're still amazed at how little things cost.
We've been here for 4 years now. We just mentioned we went down to Playa and got these beautiful blown glass lamps to hang here in the ceiling, and I didn't even ask how much it was going to be. I just ordered them, and so
Right.
we weren't really prepared for any price, low or high. Like, it was like, we want them. We wanted something custom. They're art, pieces of art, right? And just were shocked. It was with the electrical wires that you hang them from. It was less than 3,000 pesos for these beautiful,
Which is $150
$150,
total
and
for a set of 3 lights.
the wires themselves were $45. So these beautiful lamps were
Yes.
$105, and I had looked for Wayfair. Not that they ship here in Mexico, but thinking of having a friend bring them down, and they were well over $100 a piece on the Wayfair site. So we were, pleasantly surprised. We were ready to pay whatever it was, just because we had custom ordered them. But it is different, You'd never do that. I would never do that in the United States. Order something like that, right?
Yes.
It could end up being $6,000, right,
right,
for those
right.
lamps in a artisan situation like that. But here you can, and yeah, it just is delightful. We're a little concerned when we go back on sticker shock. Though Tom's got his fishing trip next month and going up to Seattle, so we're like, oh gosh, going back.
Yeah, every 6 months I have to go, less than 6 months because you never wait till the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
But every 5.5 months I go back to renew my tourist visa in the States. And the first sticker shock comes when you have to buy the plane ticket, and that's enough money to have a wonderful time here just to fly back and go around the turnstile and get a new visa. But I took a friend in San Diego to IHOP for breakfast, and it was $45 for 2 people to have breakfast.
That happened to us.
And I can get a very nice big fresh breakfast for 2 with everything for $10 down here. It's like time travel back to childhood for what things cost. And I think a lot of people listening to this might say, well, hold on, you're really screwing over the locals by taking advantage of them with these low prices. But they set the prices.
That's right.
And you're really not a jerk unless you're haggling with them, especially in these very difficult times. I don't haggle on anything now. If I can't pay the price that they set, it's more respectful to thank them, say you can't afford it, and walk away.
Absolutely.
Than to try to haggle with people whose kids maybe haven't had meat in their soup for 6 months.
Well, or internet, remote learning schools. We had to, help our
right.
maid out with internet. It got cut off. She ran out of data and asked to borrow money for that. And I said, well, how much is it? And she said, it was like 300 pesos or something. I said, come over here. Let me give it to you. No, I'm not going to loan it to you. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I got here, my personal goal, having deep respect for the people, and my personal goal was from day one, give more than you take, give more to the island than you take from the island, and that's in all aspects of life, and in environmentally and fiscally, and just dealing with people interpersonally. And when things started to lock down here in April, I saw that there were people taking temperatures at the ferry, as has happened in the entire planet and all transportation centers. And so I walked up to a lady who was doing this, and I did a stupid rookie move, assumed she didn't speak any English, and went to her with a pre-translated question on my phone, which she politely read and then answered in perfect English.
Right.
I said, "May I help you? I have a medical background. May I volunteer some time helping to take temperatures here?" And she said, "Yeah, of course. Come tomorrow morning." And at this time, everyone was still moving freely. But as I started doing this, taking temperatures at the ferry landing, they started locking down the island more and more. First, the bars closed, and the restaurants closed, and then all the businesses closed unless they were deemed essential, and everybody was stuck at home. And I got to go out and go from my home to the ferry landing and spend time at this beautiful place for 4 hours, and then go back and be locked in with my sickly dog again. And it was a way to get out, and that turned into a really big deal.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, they didn't even want you standing in the doorway of your house, much less go out.
Right.
It was really a difficult time in that respect. So you were doing the volunteer work at the ferry, and then I know that evolved into additional care work.
Well, not for quite a while. I actually asked the medical personnel there if I could help with. I thought it'd be fun to transport patients, because I saw nurses from the island transporting patients to Cancun for lab work and other things, and thought, hey, that'll make my leash even longer.
Right.
and initially they said, yeah, maybe you could help with that, but that never came to anything. So I just volunteered there and took a lot of pictures at the ferry terminal, and had always had a passion for photography as a hobby, but got to take pictures just on my route around home and around the ferry terminal, and got involved with several Facebook groups and sharing those photos, and that got very political very quickly, because people were saying, hey, these pictures are too pretty, you're luring people here, they're not supposed to come here, stop it, but keep doing it, they're so pretty.
Well, you got some amazing shots of North Beach with not a soul on it. I remember that.
Yeah, that came later, but what I did is I switched to black and white, and so I went through a black and white phase during lockdown, so that I was showing people what it was like here, answering their curiosity, but trying not to entice them to come down. And so went into this black and white phase, and we went into dry law, which meant that there were lots of police hanging around the ferry terminal, checking people to make sure that they weren't bootlegging liquor over here. And so I got to know a lot of the police quite well, including the police chief. And after I'd been there for quite a while, the president of Mexico, AMLO, came to visit, and the chief of police was definitely showing force there to impress these dignitaries who were visiting. So I walked over to him and said in my broken Spanish, "You're obviously the boss here. This must be a big day for you." And he said, "It's the biggest day of my life." And he was sweaty palmed, nervous. And I said, "Do you have a photographer capture this big day of yours. And he looked at me like I was the stupidest gringo he'd ever seen in his life. And he said, of course I don't. And I said, well, there's too many of us here taking temperatures. There'll still be 2 people if I go with you. I'll just tell them and I'll go with you and take pictures. And he said, well, all right. So I'm in my nurse scrubs, and I asked for his WhatsApp, because everyone uses WhatsApp here for communication and the phone service. And so I asked for his WhatsApp number, and I started sending him these pictures as I'm taking them. And every one he was saying, wow, this is great. Wow, this is great. So he was so happy. And at one point he was standing right next to the military base blockade, and I got between him and a young soldier on a pickup with a machine gun, and the soldier asked me very assertively in Spanish, "Who are you?" And I, just being cute, looked at the police chief, looked at the soldier, looked at the police chief, looked at the soldier, and said, "Oh, him, he's with me," and pointed at the police chief, which the police chief then bit both his lips and his tongue, trying not to laugh, took me gently by the shoulders and put me on the other side of him.
Oh, dear.
And we've been great, fun, joking friends ever since. But I asked the police chief during lockdown if I could have permission to go to North Beach, which is the biggest draw of the island, because it had been left completely alone for 4 months. I said, I want to go there and take pictures to
the natural beauty untouched
the
by humans,
natural
right?
untouched beauty of what this beach looks like with no one on it, and to, for historical value.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yeah, sure, go ahead. So I got up on the beach and spent a day making the only footprints in the sand. And from a photography perspective, it was very strange because every step I took was deliberate, because I didn't want to turn around,
Right.
shoot a stretch of beach, and have me wandering all over the place.
Yeah.
So every step was measured and looking back. And so I captured 617 photos that day of this empty beach, and have only released a couple of the photos because there are still hard feelings about the fact I got that
you
permission.
got to do that. Well, I think that's so important. And in fact, I saw a post back then, basically that with some I think Dale Stewart had posted some, and it had dates on it and stuff. Were those yours? Those are probably your photos. There's one of even Medina too that was completely
there were
desolate. There were some other
there were those other people who were just holding their breath, walking to the end of the street, taking a few shots, and leaving. And there were people who did that, and it sure wasn't my place to police that in any way.
No. But yeah, you're not going to see that again, hopefully. Anytime soon.
No, because that beach feeds the entire island.
Yeah.
It's as much of a draw here as the Statue of Liberty is a draw to New York. It's just huge.
Yeah.
And people come here most of the people who come to the island come on a 4-hour trip, and they get off the boats, they go left, and they go to Playa Norte.
Yeah, that's cool. So you've sort of evolved from the photography, doing the drone work. You want to tell me how that came about?
Well, I had a drone when I first came here. It was one of the very few things that I packed, and I went to turn it on, and it just said, "No, this is an airport zone." And so I started looking into what it would take to get permission to fly it here, and I asked my chief of police
friends,
and he said yes, go ahead. And I had that in a WhatsApp message, but after some time of flying that way, I had a guy, a civil air pilot from the States, said saw one of my posts on Facebook on one of the general pages, and he said, "You're absolutely not allowed to fly there," and I know that for a fact. And I thought, well, I could argue with this guy, or I could see if I can learn something from this. And I thought, yeah, I really need something in writing.
Right.
So I went to the new chief of police. There had been a changing of the guard. Went to the new guy, introduced myself to him, told him all the rules that I impose on myself for flying here, and he gave me a written license that included those rules as if he came up with them, and signed it, and it's good till Halloween this year, and I take that very seriously and appreciate the opportunity to get
and of course,
drone shots of the
the
island.
military base across the street is probably off limits, right? You
Yeah.
can't go over that.
But it's not just the base, but there's also
certain
housing up by.
the military
Oscars
housing.
Marina. Don't
Gotcha.
fly over that. I won't fly over their pier and their boats.
Yes.
So I have my little no-fly zones that I stay away from. But yeah, I did very much enjoy the photography and sharing it.
We'll be back in a moment.
Isla Mujeres is a Caribbean jewel off the coast of Cancun. Castilito del Caribe warmly invites you to enjoy our spectacular oceanfront villa located in the heart of El Centro and a short walk to Playa Norte, which is ranked one of the top 10 beaches in the world. With an ocean view of crystal clear turquoise waters overlooking both the Caribbean and Cancun city skyline, we offer a fabulous location for you to enjoy all the peace and tranquility you're looking for on vacation, while also taking in all the excitement the island has to offer, with activities either in walking distance or a golf cart day excursion away. Please visit CastilitoCaribe.com, www.CastilitoCaribe.com. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Is it time to go? Are you starved for adventure and new experiences? Do you feel like you're slowly dying inside, just a little, day by day? Afraid of having to work forever with never enough money to retire or live the life you have always imagined? Life doesn't have to be that way. Instead, imagine waking up in paradise every day saying, "Pinch me, is this real?" Join me in this free live workshop. You'll walk away with your own custom roadmap to a dream life in paradise without breaking the bank. Register for our next free workshop at paradiseroadmap.com.
Welcome back to the Overseas Life Redesign podcast. Thank you so much for being here, and we invite you to subscribe if you like what you hear.
And so your hobby is kind of turned into a little bit more than that, right? With a few engagement photos, I know, and weddings.
Just doing some stuff for American visitors, and been doing more stuff for people. But my passion remains doing art shots of the island, day and night, and drone shots and handheld shots. I'm still doing consulting work back in the States, and thank goodness for the stimulus checks go a lot further here than they do in the States.
Isn't that the truth?
And
for sure.
been getting those. And
Absolutely. Yeah, and then you did a nice job on the video for us, the interviews with Paul and Diane, and they're helping tell that love story. So, but you've had multiple upgrades for your drones.
The technology is increasing very quickly, and I've got a new drone that has a bigger sensor on it, so it takes better pictures at night, and so very much looking forward.
Change too with the
No, they've been able to use satellites to keep pretty stable for quite some time. It's the camera technology that's
the
improving,
driver for the
improving the most quickly, and so this new one I've got, it's got a 1-inch sensor. It is able to capture the night shots better, and want to do a lot more moonlight shots over the island.
Yeah, you like the night
Yeah.
photography. I've
definitely.
noticed that you've. And then that was interesting. You were explaining the differences in the colors. The different lights at
Mhm.
night give off different colors. I had no idea. I guess the human eye can't see that, right? Is that the lens, or I mean?
Well, you can if you really look at the lights as if they were, like when you look at the stars and the planets. You say, well, where's Mars? It's that one that's a little red, but it isn't really red. It's very, very slightly orange. But those very slight differences we see in the stars, you see those in the street lights.
But not to the extent that the photography picks
no,
them
because
up.
when you're looking from the air, you see the whole area that the light is lighting in it. And it tints everything in that area, and you can compare. So
I wanted to ask you earlier. We went on to other things, but I believe you sold your boat in San Diego, so you don't have a quote unquote home in the United States anymore.
Right. I one of the Facebook groups I belong to I think it's called Moving to Tulum, and which is, there's a lot of construction going on there, condo construction going on there, a lot of expats moving there, and one of the most common questions that comes up is, what do you wish you'd done differently when you moved? And the first answer that comes up over and over again is sell everything. So turn everything into cash and repurchase it here, because no matter how much you think you like that chair or that table or that refrigerator that you can't replace down here, you're going to buy it 3 times over getting it here if it gets here intact, and you're better off just selling everything. The one exception I've allowed myself to make is I've got to get my motorcycle here. And it's an Italian bike that I can't get here. I only spent $2,500 for it in San Diego, but in Hollywood. I lived in San Diego, but I've looked at what I can get for that here, and that's a pretty junky bike. So currently riding. Oh, that's the other thing. First thing you do before you leave is sell everything, turn it all into money. Second thing is secure your transportation immediately when you get here, because otherwise you'll wish you had. I bought a $600 junky Mexican motorcycle my first week here, and I have absolutely no regrets.
You still have it?
Yes, and I've been able to go anywhere I wanted to go and not rely on cabs. And especially during lockdown, oh my gosh, just having your own transportation, and yes, it's been fantastic. So
do you have a plan for bringing the bike down, or you're
I'm
storing
it
someplace?
Right now it's in Maryland. It's going to come down by boat, and so as soon as it gets here by boat, I've got to go to the police and get a temporary permit for that while I do the import documentation, which I hear is going to be difficult and spendy and may make me feel like I should have sold it and bought here. But anyway, pick a couple of things that you're going to take, but don't try to move a house full of furniture here or anything of the like.
Yeah, that's good advice.
What did you guys bring down here?
Well, we came by sailboat, and just when we came, we weren't sure if we were going to stay or not. So with the boat, everything was self-contained, and tried it out, and decided, we kind of like it here. So it was actually a year later we went back. We sold most things, cars, motorcycles, things, but put put the rest, the things we didn't sell, in a 10x10 storage. Well, we went back a year later and we downsized to half that. So we now have a 5x10, and brought we have a 50-foot sailboat with 30 tons. A freighter. We have our own freighter, basically.
Right.
We were able, and most of the things we brought were actually for this house. Things that we couldn't necessarily, indoor, outdoor lamps, like for downstairs. I converted a sleeper sofa into teak and tables. Long story. I never buy insurance. I bought insurance, and it covered pet damage. And so we had the sleeper sofa that was damaged. And I thought, well, if I'm not going to get rid of it, I want to at least get it recovered, and I'll put it in storage. We don't know what we're going to do with it. Well, it turns out that fabric wasn't available anymore. And they didn't, anyway, this long negotiation. And so finally, they wouldn't give me cash. And so finally I said, well, can I go for store credit? Yeah, sure, we'll give you full store credit. I'm like, score. So I went to this furniture store, and I don't know if you remember the driftwood tables that are downstairs. Mm-hmm. So it was all non-metal, right? Nothing that rusts. So we were able to get these two driftwood end tables for downstairs, and these two indoor-outdoor lamps with a heavy-duty cord that because of the salt coming in. So we were able to convert that one belonging into something that we could actually use down here. So nice. Silk plants are kind of hard to come by down here. So I had some silk trees, foliage that's down there and things like that. So it was very practical, the things that we brought. My printer, that I needed for my business, and, things of that nature. What else?
Yeah, electronics down here are difficult. Mm-hmm. There was a Best Buy store in Cancun. They shut down.
Yeah, they pulled out of Mexico.
And and I think the reason is that the taxes are just obscene on anything electronic you buy here. So the most common things that get muled down are electronics.
Yeah.
And I brought a computer that I had to buy a second time on one of my visa clearing trips, and broke the monitor, but it still was glad I brought it because I couldn't have replaced it here for anything reasonable.
Yeah.
You brought up the boat. That's one of the main things that we have in common, other than just the human experience, is living aboard. And just to play on words, living aboard and living abroad aren't that different, because when you're on a boat and you push off from the marina and you unplug, you might as well be in another country for in a lot of respects. And I lived aboard for 5 years between Washington State, Canada, and California. And you learn to live small, you learn to live simply, and you learn what you need in life and what you don't need in life, and what's important and what isn't materially. And so that made it a lot easier for me to move. It was like moving aboard a different boat to come down here.
Yeah,
but
that's
a much
a good
smaller
analogy.
boat.
Yeah, that is a good analogy. I think that's really the case. And yeah, it was, and actually, when I say we downsized to half it, we didn't take half that stuff with us. We actually had made the decision we're not going back. So when you're, it's not a bad move if you're not sure and you just want to try it out for a while. Maybe like Diane, she said, that's my security.
Right.
That's my insurance. So if it doesn't work out, I know that I can take my china and my things that are meaningful for me, mostly artwork that she's collected around the world and that sort of thing. And I know I could set up an apartment and I would have the things that would make it feel like home. So
right.
So depending on what your reasoning is, but in our case, like, we had this ginormous TV, like this 60-inch TV. Well, it was not going to fit on the boat, and we had no place for it anyway. And I actually ended up selling it to a lady that owned a consignment shop. It was right before the Super Bowl, and I thought that's the perfect time to buy a TV, sell a great big TV. So we sold that, but we had just put it in storage because it's like, I don't know,
Right.
And then the stand that came with it, and then I had some beautiful office furniture that I had for many years when I was practicing law, and I didn't, we tried to sell it at one consignment store. It didn't sell, and I wasn't ready to get it. I ended up just donating it and, taking the tax write-off for it. But, probably, and I can't wait to go back and go through it again because we will downsize at least half. But there are a few things in there that, mementos and
Right.
Tom's got his grandfather's shopsmith that he doesn't want to bring here because of the rust. Mm-hmm. And there's a few other things like that we may hold on to a little bit longer. But yeah, the more you can get rid of, the better it is, the easier it is.
Well, everybody, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, has asked themselves the question of, what would I do if my house burned down? And that's kind of a way of looking at moving and restarting your life is just act like your house burned down.
Yeah.
And people, that happens to people all the time, a flood, a tornado, a
I
fire,
was gonna say, yeah.
and losing literally everything but what you had when you went to the store before your house burned down. And the answer is you go on. You'd be fine without those things.
Yeah.
And the newer generation of travelers that I'm seeing here, these 20-somethings who are coming here, they're all about experiences over things.
That stuff. Yeah.
When I was that age, I was trying to buy a car, trying to buy a stereo, trying to buy a big TV. I was learning how to be a slave to capitalism before I even moved out of my parents' house, always having to buy the next thing and working more than you wanted to and never going anywhere or having any experiences. And maybe a rock concert was an experience, and that's nothing like getting off a plane in a place where everyone's speaking a different language.
That's right.
And the money's a different color, and the weather is completely different, and you can't call home because it's a different time of day. And it's I'm so happy to see these people traveling, but they're not buying anything in the tourist shops here because that's money that they could spend on their next trip.
Right.
And they just aren't collecting anything.
Well, it weighs you down too, right? Stuff weighs you
yeah.
down. So if you collect all of these things, it is interesting to see. My first husband and I did do the backpack around Europe thing and did have the experiences, but actually we came back and we had bought a house. That was a rental when we bought it, and we just let them stay there so we could go travel. And so, but we worked very hard to try to have both. And I'm not sure it's so easy to do that in this day and age. That was, 40 years ago almost now that we did that. So things have changed financially dramatically for these kids in that age.
Yeah, definitely. And travel is right now the problem with the biggest problem that the island is having is that airfares are very, very high in spite of the fact there are so few people traveling, because the airlines just got an enormous bailout to the tune of billions of dollars from the U.S. government, and they're corporate America loves to talk about lazy, poor Americans who don't want to work, and there's no one who doesn't want to work like a corporation doesn't want to work, and so they've got these bailouts that they're sitting on, and they are not flying as many flights, and they're charging more per seat. They're gouging because it's cheaper to get bailouts and not fly.
And they know it's in demand, right? People want to go somewhere, so it's like, I'll pay whatever it takes. Oh, what did we do?
Ask me.
Oh, okay. What are some? You mentioned one, the not selling your stuff. You said, yes. You have more.
Well, yeah. So things that I've done wrong coming here is I wish that I had done a little more research on the places to stay in the island, because I've gotten this place that I'm in right now. I've gotten myself dug so deep there. I feel like I owe these people for being so kind to me and giving me such a low rental price, and for letting me bring in a nearly dead dog. Maybe that was where I'm supposed to be, but I wish that I had looked around a little more on where I planted myself first. Maybe it wasn't such a dire emergency to come here. And another is that I wish I had done a little more research in ways that I could do more consulting with the work that I did. I cut ties so completely with my consulting back there that I've had only a few consulting gigs. Thankfully, they've gotten me through, but wish I'd looked
a better
more
transition.
Yeah. I mean, just the research, and so I mean, now a year on, looking back, I've got got a lot of this stuff figured out. But I think had I learned about your program earlier, I think that could have been a big help into having someone to ask those questions of, and not being
thank you for saying that.
So alone in the dark.
We try for sure. And yeah, it is a big move. I'm actually working with a very successful expat coach right now. I'm going to start marketing her program soon, as she has a certification process. But one of the things we've talked about with this market that I've selected, which is really your first time expats, people, the midlife transition folks that are wanting better quality of life, right, for less cost. The problem is they don't know what they don't know. And it's the same thing that I experienced as a business attorney. Actually, it's sort of ironic because my husband used to say, I was a before stuff happens. It's a clean show, so I didn't want to say the S word, but I was a before stuff happens lawyer. Mm-hmm. If you didn't come to me in business and you waited until things had hit the fan, then I was going to have to refer you to one of my business litigation friends, and they were going to be a whole lot more expensive than what I charged on the preventive side, the old, penny wise, pound foolish sort of phenomenon. But it was the same thing, and that's typically what would happen. My clients would get in trouble because they didn't know what they didn't know, and so you just sort of plow ahead blindly.
And ignorance is a terrible defense.
It's a terrible defense, and I think the same is the case here, where there's a lot of pitfalls for the unwary, and a lot of times you don't even know where they are, and so it is beneficial to talk to folks. And I, as I've said in my community, there's all kinds of information out there on the internet, but a lot of it is confusing or just flat out false. I've seen so many things on there that are just not true, and so you have to really consider your source as you're gathering the data that you need to make a good decision.
And then when you are local here, you get probed constantly on Facebook by people. The most common things that people are asking, and these are people that I didn't coin this, but takers, who the question they ask is, what can I get away with down there?
Yes.
And it annoys me so much because I had one woman who said, oh, well, you can go to Mexico and you can get, if you're white in Mexico, you can get away with anything. Yeah, you can, but look at the damage you're doing to your own soul and to other white people who look like you and don't act like you, and you've ticked off the locals by.
Well, and I would say that's just flat out false, and it's a good way to land in jail if you come in with that attitude, because the fact of the matter is.
But you see things here. You would not see an 8-year-old child driving an Avis rent-a-car in Dallas on vacation from Cancun. But you come to Isla and you say an 8-year-old child driving 5 drunk adults in a golf cart down the wrong side of the road on the island.
Yes.
And you can probably get away with that. But what a terrible thing to do to people in another place, to endanger people, to scoff at their laws. And the people say, well, I hear that the cops down there are really dirty. Well, if there are dirty cops, they've probably just dealt with so many absolutely horrible tourists that they're just seething with anger from all the things that they've seen. So my advice to everybody is act better than you would on your own street.
Absolutely.
And be a good example, and just always give more than you take. And I'm not a Star Trek fan, but Leonard Nimoy said famously, it's one of the most wonderful things about being human is that the more you give, the more you have. And so if you're living your life in a way that you're saying, okay, I'm going to take because I deserve things, and I want these things and I deserve them, but I want to give a little bit more than this thing I'm taking. And I feel that way especially because I feel that living here is such a gift that I just think of lots of little ways to give. And some of the ways I found to give are to shop local. So don't go to the big box store. Go to the little market. Don't haggle on prices. If someone is gouging and you know they're gouging, a laugh and a smile will let them know that they know it's too much, and they'll probably tell you the real price as you're walking away. And don't feel bad about paying that price because that was the real one to begin with. But and then just I've gone out of my way to not take away work from people. Like there's a lady who wants me to help her hang her picture. Well, I could do that, but I said ask the local workers, because she'll pay them 200 pesos for that, and it's a few days of food. So just be mindful all the time of what you're taking and what you're giving, and the place will give to you so much more in ways you never imagined. People will recognize you and say, you're the one who helped out so-and-so. What can I do for you? And it just matters to just to be nice and to be giving. But take the things you want too. Do the things that you want, and make at least one day a week into a vacation while you're here.
Absolutely. Well, good advice. On that note, I think we'll end it. I appreciate your sharing your story with us, and we'll put a link to your Facebook profile, so if people want to reach out to you or take a look at your beautiful photography, they can do that.
Please do.
All right.
Thank you.
Is it time to go? Are you starved for adventure and new experiences? Do you feel like you're slowly dying inside, just a little, day by day? Afraid of having to work forever with never enough money to retire or live the life you have always imagined? Life doesn't have to be that way. Instead, imagine waking up in paradise every day saying, "Pinch me, is this real?" Join me for How to Retire Overseas on a Shoestring Budget. In this free live workshop, you'll walk away with your own custom roadmap to a dream life in paradise without breaking the bank. Register for our next free workshop at paradiseroadmap.com.